What's a piece of propaganda that to this day still has many people fooled? Same thing with plastic recycling and the numbers on plastics. It was a marketing ploy to convince people it was okay to buy plastic goods and not worry about plastic pollution, even though no one was really recycling anything, and even today a majority of plastics are not recycled. They shifted the responsibility to consumers and covered up the problem. Planet Money has a podcast on it, Wasteland, September 11, 2020, explaining what happened and is still happening in plastics petroleum industry. Guinness is high in iron. This was used to market beer to pregnant women. For real, 1 ounce of nuts has twice as much iron as a Guinness. In Ireland, a Guinness was given to new mothers after they gave birth in the hospital. My Irish mother was told she could drink a glass of Guinness while pregnant. Probably explains why me and my brother are thick as shit, lol. My great-grandmother was told by the doctor to drink Guinness and eat baked beans while pregnant for the iron. She gave birth to 6 boys. My granddad was the smallest at 13 pounds. My grandmother was quoted as saying, "Thank goodness I smoked during my pregnancies or else my babies would have been huge." My mom's siblings were all healthy weights, 8 pounds or so. My siblings and I were all 10 pounds or larger, lol. My granddad has hemochromatosis. What he loved most about having to have blood taken regularly was that he was told to drink a pint of Guinness afterwards to replenish his iron. He was very irked when that recommendation turned to orange juice. That doesn't make any sense at all. The whole point of bloodletting to treat hemochromatosis is to remove the excess iron. Why would he be told to go out and replace it? You're expecting logic from a place that recommends having a pint after draining a not insignificant amount of blood. The McDonald's hot coffee lady smear campaign. Coffee's is generally 130 F. McDonald's was 200. McDonald's had been cited on 7 other occasions that they were keeping their coffee at dangerously hot temperatures. The woman had 4th-degree burns to her genitalia. She simply asked McDonald's to pay the $20,000 in medical bills. They refused and she sued for the $20,000. The $9 million was added by the jury. Background for why the coffee was so hot: McDonald's served free refills of coffee. The McDonald's franchise instructed employees to serve the coffee stupid hot so breakfast buyers would not have enough time to allow the coffee to cool off. Folks finishing their food would have to take the hot coffee away and not get a refill. This increased the turnover rate and reduced refills. The McDonald's knew this and cited multiple times not to engage in this practice as other people had gotten injured enjoying their hot lava in a paper cup. We had to get 4 samples, 1 for each quadrant of the petri dish. We did the lock on my lab partner's locker, the bottom of the sink in the bio lab, the bottom of my shoe, and the top of my long-suffering bio teacher's bald head. Lab sink wins for most funk growing in it. Locker takes the number 2 spot and actually had 2 colors of funk growing in it. My shoe was surprisingly clean, but I credit that to being hard to get a legit sample from the rubber. My teacher keeps his head wonderfully clean. Very little growth. That carrots make you see better in the dark. The claim originated with the British to explain why they were shooting down so many German planes. They had actually invented radar. Edit. Just because this is blowing up and it's tangentially related. Rabbits shouldn't really eat carrots much at all. They are too high in sugar and lack the nutrients they need. The whole rabbit/carrot thing dates back to the origin of Bugs Bunny, who in an early cartoon mimicked a famous Clark Gable movie scene involving eating tons of carrots. Eventually the carrot became Bugs' trademark gimmick and we've all since linked rabbits love carrots, but please, don't feel carrots to your rabbits folks, they're bad for them. The British had invented radar, but the Germans knew they had. Radar installations were actually some of the first target bombed in the initial stages of the Battle of Britain. What the Germans didn't know was that the British had developed a radar set small enough to be carried in an aircraft. So when the British suddenly started finding and shooting down German aircraft in the middle of the night, the British needed a cover story. That's where the carrots make you see better at night story comes from. Fun fact: carrots were specifically chosen because it was one of the foodstuffs the British had in ample supply, so they wanted to promote their consumption. Another fun fact: carrots do improve your nighttime visions, but to make a perceivable difference you'd need to eat so many carrots it would actually turn you orange. In Germany there's the saying, Die Dosis macht das Gift, which means, the dose makes the poison, / it's the dose that makes the poison. It's true for so much, including virtually everything in food like salt, sugar, and also fat. Edit. A lot of folks pointed out that the point where it is too much is relatively low for sugar, and that sugar intake itself is not actually necessary for the human body. I'll probably stop looking at this thread now. I've read that lab-created gems, including diamonds, contain the exact same composition as regular out-of-the-dirt gems, except since they're made in a lab, there are little to no imperfections. Which I think is pretty cool. Besides, why spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on gems of sometimes questionable origin, see, conflict diamonds, when the man-made alternative is cheaper, more ethical, and no one can really tell the difference unless they're an expert? Food drives are massive propaganda. People believe that donating their unwanted food to a food bank helps people dash. Yes. It's a really nice thing to do, and absolutely creates goodwill and makes people feel good about themselves. It's a lovely thing to have children do to exercise/tune their empathy. Many of the donations are unusable, expired, damaged, and the cost of sorting and transporting donations can actually exceed its value to a food bank. If you want to help hungry people in your community, donate your time or money to your local food bank. On the flip side, please use your local food bank before you're in crisis, before you're homeless, before the electric is turned off. We want you to use the services as the first line of defense if you're struggling, not the last. That Subway bread contained ground-up yoga mats. It contained a dough conditioner that is perfectly safe for humans to consume that yoga mats also used. People were shocked that breathing in the chemical can be dangerous and cause asthma, so it must be dangerous to eat. But you know what other ingredient is used in yoga mats and bread that's dangerous or even fatal to breathe in? Water. They still phased it out because it's easier to just have chemists and chefs find a new ingredient than it is to teach Americans the most basic of chemistry. That one Lemmings documentary saying they'll all follow herd mentality and will run off a cliff if one of them does it. The film crew actually chased them off the cliffs. Eat it. Jesus, I'm so sorry that I misunderstood the question of what propaganda is. Some of you are very rude. You always act like that to people who don't speak English as a first language. They didn't just chase them off a cliff, they literally gathered a herd of them, drove them to a filming spot where lemmings aren't even found, and rigged up a contraption that forced them off and just used editing to make it look like they ran off. Edit. The reason they gathered a herd and drove them somewhere else is because the documentary they were doing was about Arctic wildlife. They paid for a bunch of lemmings to be taken to downtown Calgary, a Canadian town near the Canada-America border, very far away from the Arctic, for easy filming. They also took a polar bear cub and put it in a film studio in Calgary and faked it falling down an ice slope. Too busy didn't Google. TBDG McDonald's according to policy served coffee at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. The attorney for the woman argued that was too hot and coffee shouldn't be served hotter than 140 F, along with expert testimony saying that coffee that hot will produce third-degree burns in 3 seconds versus coffee at 140 F would take 20 seconds, enough time to react and prevent injury. The cream on the coffee of this story is McDonald's argued that their customers are commuters who want to drink the coffee several minutes after purchase. However, their own internal research showed that customers want to consume coffee right away. And between 1982 and 1992, McDonald's received over 700 complaints or burns from their coffee. In the end, the jury found McDonald's 80% responsible and the lady 20% responsible, and awarded her $160K of the $200K she was suing for plus $2.7 million in punitive damage.